This is a News 12 Long Island Vote 2011 election debate.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Island Vote 2011 election special. I'm Doug Geed. For the next half hour, I'll be speaking with the two candidates running for supervisor in the town of Hempstead. The town of Hempstead covers the southwest section of Nassau County, bordered on the east by the town of Oyster Bay and to the north by the town of North Hempstead. Now let's meet the candidates. The incumbent is Kate Murray of Levittown. She's running on the Republican, Conservative, Independence, and Tax Revolt lines. The challenger is Gary Port of West Hempstead. He's running on the Democratic line. Welcome to News 12 Long Island.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Before we begin, here are the rules and the format of the debate. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement. Each will then have a minute and a half to answer each question, 30 seconds for a rebuttal when needed. Then at the end of the debate, both candidates will have 1 minute for closing statements. We start now with the opening statements. The speaking order was decided by lot prior to the show, and we begin with Kate Murray.
Thank you, Doug. And I want to thank you and News 12 for sponsoring these debates. As always, it gives our residents the opportunity to see the candidates, see what we stand for. And I'm very, very proud to say that just a couple nights ago, we passed a tax-free budget for 2012 in the town of Hempstead. You know, we are all about stimulating the economy, creating jobs, and freezing taxes for our residents. This is a very, very tough economy. We know we have to assist our residents. And so we have frozen taxes once again for 2012. But at the same time, Doug, we are maintaining services. We have not cut back any of our services. We have a AAA bond rating from Wall Street. In fact, that makes us a higher bond rating than the federal government at this time. So I'm very, very proud of the fiscal legacy that I've created over the 8 years that I have been had the privilege of being supervisor of the town of Hempstead.
All right, Mr. Port, 1 minute for you as well.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. I'd like to also thank News 12 for hosting this debate. I'd also like to thank my wife, Yukiko, and our 4 children who have been very supportive. And I'd also like to thank my mother-in-law, Kikoe Saito, who came in from Japan to give me some assistance. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army Reserve. I own my own business, and I'm a scoutmaster. I'm in this campaign because the town of Hempstead is hemorrhaging jobs. Businesses are fleeing, jobs are fleeing, people are following the jobs. We have predatory taxes. We have infrastructure that's crumbling, and we have no economic plan for the future. Supervisor Murray doesn't see that there's a problem, so she has no plan. I have a plan to bring quality, high-paying jobs to the town of Hempstead with a future. I'm asking for your support on November 8th so I can hit the ground running to bring jobs and an economic future back to the town of Hempstead.
Okay, obviously the economy is the number one issue for every candidate
Right.
for any office in the country and has been really for the past few years. Let's talk about, how is the government doing more with less? How are you saving services? Are you merging departments? What have you been doing over the past couple of years? And Mr. Port, what would you do? We'll begin with you. Minute and a half. Ms. Murray.
Okay. Well, that's a great question. As I had said in my opening, the great thing is we're able to freeze taxes for 2012, and yet we have not rolled back one service, one program, haven't laid off one worker. And at the same time, we are attracting great major development in the town of Hempstead, which is creating thousands of jobs. We have 3 major developments going on right now. The Equity One project, which promises to create 600 permanent jobs while also creating thousands of construction jobs as well. We have the Avalon Bay residential unit in East Garden City. That project creates 200 housing units. It's putting in hundreds of millions of dollars into the economy. And then, of course, the Courtesy Hotel, where Mr. Port lives in West Hempstead. That was a blighted hotel. That has been torn down, and in its place will be 150 transit-oriented apartments for our young professionals, our young commuters. These 3 projects alone have created literally thousands of jobs to stimulate and to jumpstart our economy. On the government side, we are right-sizing our workforce. We are doing more with less, but we're not rolling back any of our programs. And because of our great fiscal stability, we are able to freeze taxes on top of maintaining all of our absolutely number one municipal services.
All right, Mr. Port, where would you save money?
Oh, there's so many places to start. I mean, first off, the biweekly mailers that we get from the town to tell us to wear our jackets when it's cold or to use car seats, that costs us about $4 million. The signages that go up everywhere in town with Supervisor Murray's name on, we've seen it basically everywhere that there can be a sign and a truck and a pothole and a curb, Supervisor Murray's name is on that. We have the animal shelter that went up in their budget to $7 million under Supervisor Murray when it originally started at 3.5, and Newsday reported that that was patronage jobs. In her current budget, she's again increased the sections in each of the departments on how much money that they are taking and spending. This is not a recipe for economic development. The town government is bloated with patronage jobs, and they need to be cut. With regard to economic development, the type of jobs that we don't need another source mall like what we're going to see at the Avis property. We need high-paying, high-quality jobs, not minimum wage clerk jobs. And with regard to things like the Courtesy Hotel, that's an example of where Supervisor Murray has fallen down. That hotel, and I was in that fight, the town, the entire village, fought against Supervisor Murray for 5 years, who refused to tear down that hotel and refused to build something new. It was only when the entire community got other elected officials to put pressure on Supervisor Murray that we were able to get the Courtesy down and a new project in.
Mr. Port, I know you've made jobs creation. That's your kind of centerpiece of your campaign. How would you accomplish that, and where has the Murray administration not done the job?
Well, ultimately, it's a big philosophical difference. I'm looking at empty offices. Empty offices drive everything else. If you don't have people in the offices, you're not going to have people in the stores. They're not going to be buying homes. They're not going to be buying services. We've got to figure out ways to get businesses in. For example, Bye Bye Baby just left Garden City to go to New Jersey. Other states and other communities are doing a very good job poaching businesses. We have very bad zoning laws. We have very bad regulatory laws. And we have high taxes. So what are we saying to businesses? Come for the bad zoning and stay for the high taxes? We need to do something better. We need to take the zoning laws out of the 1950s. We need to streamline the regulations. And we have to work with the county and the town and the special districts to restructure the taxes so that they are not forcing businesses out. And if we don't do that, if we don't have a unified plan on how to bring all that back, we will not have any jobs in the town. People will continue to leave, and we're going to end up with a ghost town. Supervisor Murray's position is we're basically a suburb of New York City, and we really should not look towards the type of jobs I want. She wants retail stores. I want commercial enterprises. I would like a free trade zone. I would like maybe biomedical. I would like to bring in trades. I would like to bring in insurance. Folks that have good money that they can spend in the community and bring the rest of the town up.
All right, Ms. Murray, minute and a half as well.
Well, I'm delighted you asked that question because it's nice to theorize and it's nice to have a wish list, but in fact, we're actually doing it. The three major developments that are going on probably put the town of Hempstead in the vanguard of development going on right now on Long Island. And with regard to our own government budget, our spending projection for 2012 with a tax freeze is 2.9%. That's well below the CPI. We're also, for every 3 retirements, we are only hiring 2. So we are right-sizing our workforce. We are doing more with less within our own government operations. And because we are so fiscally stable, because we're freezing taxes, because we have a AAA bond rating, developers want to develop, want to do business in the town of Hempstead. And that's why we're seeing such a great uptick of major development in a time when other governments are falling by the wayside, are mired in red ink, and do not have any development going on in their townships. And so I'm very, very proud of the aggressive amount of development that is going on. It's creating good jobs, both construction-wise and permanent. And in the town of Hempstead, we are right-sizing our government, and that's why we can freeze taxes once again.
May I have a rebuttal on that?
Sure.
With regard to the budget issue, again, the budget has gone up. And what the Supervisor Murray is doing is using smoke and mirrors. First, she's eating into the reserves. Reserves are basically where they've taxed us too much in the past, and now they've got money to sit on. They're also working with the special districts. The special districts have their own taxing. The taxes go to the town, and the town takes a skim off the top. So when they raise their taxes, the town raises the taxes implicitly as well.
Ms. Murray, your response?
Well, I would just beg to disagree with that last part of my opponent's statement, but the bottom line is we have a great budget. Wall Street believes we have a great budget. We have a AAA bond rating better than the federal government. We're freezing taxes. We're maintaining our services, and we are 9 cents of your tax dollar, the smallest portion of your tax dollar, and yet we provide about 95% of your municipal services.
All right. Mr. Port had mentioned the animal shelter was kind of an ugly incident this year, allegations of animal abuse. Some employees said they were retaliated against for criticism, and also allegations that it was filled with patronage. What happened to the animal shelter? Did the town drop the ball in managing it? We'll begin with you.
No, as a matter of fact, we have, it's two women, unfortunately, who have a grudge against the town of Hempstead and have sued the town of Hempstead. And so I was very pleased when we had not one, not two, but three independent inspections, surprise inspections, by the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets and the ASPCA. And we passed all three surprise inspections with flying colors. And what I always say to people is, come down to our shelter. I am the biggest fan of our shelter. I think it's the best municipal shelter on Long Island. And when you come down and visit our shelter, you may see one of our wonderful volunteers walking our dogs on our beautiful walking trails. You may see one of our full-time veterinarians taking good care of our dogs and cats. You may see one of the many Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts who work with us and do projects at our shelter and also learn animal care responsibility from our humane educators. We process and take care of more dogs and cats than any other shelter on Long Island by a major factor. I think our shelter has been wonderful, and objectively, outside organizations have said that as well. So all I say to everybody is come on down, take a look for yourself. You're intelligent people, see what you see, and if you're thinking about expanding your family, we're going to be waiving adoption fees from mid-November to mid-January. Come on down and take a look.
All right. Mr. Port, do you have a different take?
Oh, absolutely, and it's not just two disgruntled volunteers. It was Newsday that broke the story. Newsday reported that the town animal shelter is rife with patronage jobs. People who do very little are getting paid over $100,000 a year. People who may be doing some work who should be getting paid maybe 50 or 60, but because they're Republican committee people, are being paid 90. That was Newsday's article. The problem with the animal shelter is that it is not about the animals. It is a employment agency for Republican functionaries. When Ms. Murray took office in 2003, the shelter budget was $3.5 million. It is now over $7 million. And in her current budget, I believe there's another $900,000 being shoved into that budget. What is important about the animal shelter is it sheds light on what is going on in the rest of the town government. People are getting jobs not because of what they know and what they can do, but because of who they know and their position in the Republican Party. The animal shelter has had a lot of problems, and those problems come from the fact that you have unqualified people. In fact, the current acting director, who Ms. Murray wants to make as the director, is not even educationally qualified. She's still awaiting. That's as if you decide to hire a paralegal to represent you in your divorce case 4 years from now. That's the kind of problems that we're seeing there, and as a result, people are not treating the animals properly. The volunteers really are not in the shelter. They are still locked out, and the bottom line is, unless we fix the shelter as part of the overall whole of fixing the town government, we're still going to still have a lot of patronage jobs, and we're still going to have a lot of
Mr.
taxpayer
Port,
money being wasted.
We're actually going to take a short break here. We'll come back and continue our debate for Supervisor in the town of Hempstead right here on News 12 Long Island. Stay with us. Welcome back to this Island Vote 2011 election special. We continue with the debate for Supervisor in the town of Hempstead. The candidates once again are the Republican incumbent, Kate Murray, on your left, and the Democratic challenger, Gary Port. Mr. Port, did you support either of the projects for the Nassau Hub, either the one from Mr. Wong or the one that was recently voted down by the residents? And what did you think of the zoning plan the town came up with for the area?
Well, with regard to what Ms. Mangano came up, I called it the moving target, because every time I went to a meeting, there was a different plan. Mr. Wong came in and he offered us $4.3 billion, and according to his plan, it would have been about 80,000 permanent jobs, 30,000 construction jobs, about $4 billion in salaries. Now, I know what Mr. Wong was thinking. He definitely built it too big because he wanted to scale it down because you always have to negotiate. But the concept was very good. There was stuff that we could work with, and Ms. Murray chose not to work with it, and as a result, we had this, what ultimately turned into a circus. And as a result of that, we didn't get a Coliseum project. Mr. Mangano came up with this idea this summer, well, if Mr. Wong can't make money, we'll give him money to stay, which I thought was a bad idea, and I campaigned against it, and I voted against it. I think the current zoning laws that Supervisor Murray has put into place are restrictive. This is a canvas of 77 acres, and we're only limited by our imagination. we need to start to think bigger. We need to have vision and courage to bring other and new ideas in there, not just the same old ideas. I've talked about biotech. I've talked about putting a free trade zone. Why does Suffolk have a free trade zone and we in Nassau County, where in the town of Hempstead, we're right next to JFK, we don't have a free trade zone? We need to be creative, we need to be daring, and we need to have vision and leadership. And I would like to be that leader to bring a vision to fruition at that 77 acres.
All right, Ms. Murray, how do you feel you handled that this year?
Oh, I think we ended up with an absolutely fabulous zone. On June 21st, by unanimous vote, a bipartisan vote, we put in our own zone. And we did that for the first time in the town of Hempstead's history because we were thinking outside the box. We understood that the lighthouse project was entirely too large. The poor people of Westbury, East Meadow, Uniondale, Hempstead, and Garden City, to name a few, would barely be able to get out of their neighborhoods because of the traffic that would have been engendered. So it was just not sustainable environmentally and from a quality of life perspective. So we took the unprecedented step of actually coming up with our own zone. We've never done that before in the town of Hempstead, but we did it because we understood that the 77 acres was an exceedingly important parcel that needs to be developed and developed in the right way. And so we came up with a zone that is entirely flexible. Essentially every kind of possible use that you can think of is allowable in the zone. And we are working with the landowners, of course, Nassau County, to see what their vision will be for that zone. But the zone itself is entirely flexible, and it also builds in more density than we've ever approved before as well in the town of Hempstead. We think it's a great zone. We want to see the Coliseum redeveloped. We want to see the Islanders stay on Long Island, and we want to see good, reasonable development that will not only create construction jobs, but permanent jobs as well.
Rebuttal, please.
Sure.
With regard to the new zoning laws that Supervisor Murray referred to, that was reported widely in the press, and Newsday did report that it was panned by the developers. You can have all the zoning you want, but if the people with the money aren't interested, they're not going to come and develop. We need to have zoning laws that are not developed solely by politicians. We need to get people together, people from the community, developers, business people, to find out what it is that they want and need to get the investment in that area, and not just a top-down solution.
Would you like 30 seconds?
Well, again, last count, and again, it'll ultimately end up in the county's hands. But last I looked, I think there were 8 or 9 developers that had expressed interest in developing that land. The bottom line is the town of Hempstead's job was to create a zone. We created a zone that was flexible, that's economically viable, and that will be very, very user-friendly for our developers.
All right, let's talk about affordable housing. Tell me what you've done the past couple of years to make it more affordable. And also let's touch on the accessory or illegal apartments. Do you think it's the role of the town to be very strict with that, or maybe be a little bit lenient and allow some, because maybe it's the only way that some people could afford to live on the island?
Well, with regard to our affordable housing program, we are more aggressive and more creative, I believe, than any other township on the island. In West Hempstead, we created the first transit-oriented zoning, and that was to replace the Courtesy Hotel and replace it with beautiful rental marketplace apartments for our young professionals. We also have created well over 2,500 senior citizen apartments and townhomes. We've also created over 200 single-family homes, most of which are situated in the Roosevelt community. So we have given young home buyers, buying for the first time, the opportunity to actually seek that American dream. On the other end of the spectrum, we have helped our seniors who created our communities, raised their families in our communities, and who want to stay put in our communities, buy into our senior citizen units at very, very affordable prices, and yet be in the neighborhoods which they created and nurtured for so many years. With regard to the illegal apartment issue, I took it upon myself with my colleagues years ago. We totally revamped the illegal apartment law. It's much more on the burden of the homeowner to determine that they are not, and to prove that they do not have an illegal apartment. Bottom line is we have to make sure that the health, welfare, and safety of our communities and the quality of life of our communities remains intact, and our aggressive laws do that.
Okay. Mr. Port, a minute and a half as well.
Thank you. With regard to any sort of development with housing, that's always come despite Ms. Murray. In 2006, I sat in her office with Rose Norton of the Civic Association, Scott Javlo of the Cathedral Garden Civic, Greg Yuknick of the Chamber of Commerce. I was the vice president. We came with that project she's now touting, and she told us no, absolutely not. because it's too dense, she's not going to allow it. And I told her that I live half a mile from that sewer, the Courtesy Hotel, with my 4 children, and I want it gone. Rose Norton explained why the community wanted it. She said no. 4 years of fighting before we finally got that. We need affordable housing, absolutely. In fact, that's why we have so much illegal rentals. People want to live here, but they can't afford, and there isn't any apartments. Many communities on the island and in the town have done a good job with mixed-use housing. Garden City, Cedarhurst, Floral Park. We need to start thinking like that. With regard to the illegals, the town does not do a good job in it. Right next door to me, the house very next door, there are, I think, 3 or 4 families living there. I haven't seen an inspector there, but 5 days after I filed for this election, a building inspector was at my door to inspect my house. That's the kind of things that we're seeing with the enforcement of the town of Hempstead. We need to have good projects, and we need to have good enforcement. And that's how we'll solve the problem.
Okay. We have come to the time for closing statements now, the end of our debate, and the order was decided by lot. Prior to the show, we begin with Kate Murray.
Well, it went by very quickly, as it always does, Doug. The bottom line in the town of Hempstead is we know that we are in a tough economy, so we have to respect our residents' pocketbooks. And we're doing that by freezing all town taxes for 2012. But at the same time, we know that our residents need and deserve our programs and our services. And so we have not cut back on any of those. We also have a $50 million capital improvement program this year, so we are improving our beaches, our parks, and our roadways. We are also inviting and encouraging major development to occur in the town of Hempstead as well. We have 3 major developments going on right now as we speak, which are creating thousands of jobs. The bottom line is we are right-sizing government, and we are providing economic opportunity for our residents and for our developers to bring in good developments which will create jobs and boost our economy. On November 8th, I'm looking for everyone's support. I've been your supervisor for 8 years. It's been my privilege, and I ask for your support on November 8th.
All right, Mr. Port, 1 minute for you as well.
Okay, thank you. This election is about jobs. Jobs in our crumbling economy. We also have a crumbling infrastructure and predatory taxes. We have all these problems, and our supervisor really doesn't see that the problems exist, which is why she has no plans. And in fact, in 2009, at the height of the economic crisis, when people were losing their jobs, losing their homes, and many of us were struggling, Supervisor Murray, not realizing the problem or even caring, voted after an election to give herself a $10,000 raise from $140,000 to $150,000. That's not the kind of compassion we need. If I'm elected supervisor, not only will I not raise the rates for the supervisor, but I will cut the supervisor's salary by 25%. I am looking for your support on November 8th because I have a plan to get high-quality jobs back here, to deal with the taxes, to deal with the crumbling infrastructure, and to bring integrity back to the government of the town of Hempstead.
All right. Thank you both very much. Our time is up, and we want to thank you, of course, for joining us. A reminder that this year Election Day falls on November 8th. Make sure to get out and make your vote count. And if you're looking for more information about your local races, you can log on to news12.com, click on the Island Vote 2011 banner. You can also follow us on our Island Vote 2011 Facebook page and on Twitter at News12LI, #IslandVote. And you can also watch all of our Island Vote 2011 debates and coverage on Channel 612 on your IO digital cable box. Just again, click on the Island Vote 2011 banner. I'm Doug Gee. Thanks for watching this election special on News 12 Long Island.